A disabled veteran was in court fighting for his benefits, when suddenly, the judge made an unusual request that brought the whole courtroom to tears. It's hard to believe this actually happened, but it did. So make sure to stay with me until the end of the video so you can find out what really happened. I'm not sure if you know this, but if you are a disabled veteran or have a disability, then there is an organization that helps us called the VA, which stands for the Department of Veterans Affairs. They're supposed to be there to help us get access to medical care and other benefits we've earned through our service in the military. But sometimes we have to fight for those benefits, and that's why we have a legal team. One such case was decided by Judge Reed O'Connor. This case involved a disabled veteran who had served in Afghanistan. During his service, he'd been injured when a Humvee he was driving hit an IED that caused him to lose both legs and an arm. He also suffered a traumatic brain injury and psychological trauma. So after he left the military, he went to the VA to get some help. The VA examined him and gave him a rating of 30% for his disabilities. But the veteran felt that wasn't enough, so he took his case to court. At the time, he was working with a lawyer and trying to get a higher rating from the VA, but when his lawyer dropped him from his case, he found himself alone and without anyone to represent him in court. But thankfully, the judge saw how determined he was to represent himself and offered to help him out. Before I continue with the story, please don't forget to leave a like so you won't miss any news stories. And let's get back to the story now. The judge called the veteran into his office and asked him if he could take a look at his medical records. The veteran agreed, thinking the judge would review them and maybe rule in his favor. But he had no idea what the judge was really thinking. The judge looked over the man's medical records and then told him he wanted to perform an experiment. He told the veteran to take off his prosthetic leg and socks and to lie down on a table. The veteran refused and asked the judge why he wanted him to do that. The judge replied, "I want to see how you walk." Confused, but still wanting to do whatever it took to win his case, the veteran took off his clothes and lay down on the table. At first, the judge just stared at him awkwardly. Then he started asking him questions like, "Can you move your toes? Can you feel anything in your feet?" The veteran answered truthfully, saying he couldn't feel anything. But then something unexpected happened. The judge reached out and started massaging the veteran's feet. At first, the veteran thought the judge was joking around, but then he realized he was being serious. The veteran started crying and begging the judge to stop, but he didn't. The judge continued massaging his feet for several minutes, even though the veteran was clearly uncomfortable with it. Finally, the judge stopped and told the veteran to put his clothes back on. He then walked out of the room without saying a word. The veteran was left feeling humiliated and confused about what had just happened. He put his clothes back on and slowly walked out of the judge's office. He was worried that the judge was going to rule against him because of his outburst. But the opposite happened. In fact, the judge ruled in the veteran's favor and ordered the VA to pay him a lump sum of $100,000 for his pain and suffering. The judge also increased his disability rating to 100%, which meant that he would receive full benefits for the rest of his life. The veteran was overjoyed. Not only had he won his case, but he'd also received an apology from the judge. He thanked the judge profusely and promised to never forget what he'd done for him. But here's the thing. The judge didn't do it to apologize. He did it to prove to the veteran that he was lying about his injuries. See, the judge didn't believe the veteran's testimony that he couldn't feel anything in his feet. He thought the man was faking his disabilities to get more money from the VA, so he decided to test him to see if he was telling the truth. When the veteran refused to take off his prosthetic leg, the judge got angry and ordered him to do it. He then started massaging the man's feet to see if he would react. And when he did, the judge knew he was lying. The veteran was devastated. He couldn't believe that the judge would treat him that way. He felt humiliated and betrayed. To make things worse, he was ordered to pay back the $100,000 he'd been paid by the VA. He didn't know how he was going to do that. News of the verdict spread quickly and people were outraged. They couldn't believe that a judge would be so insensitive to a disabled veteran. Many people called for the judge to be impeached, but nothing came of it. The judge was never held accountable for his actions. The veteran was left with no choice but to appeal the decision. He hired a new lawyer, and they worked hard to gather evidence to prove that the veteran was telling the truth. They also contacted the media to get the public on their side, and it worked.
Wow.
The appellate court overturned the lower court's decision and ordered a new trial. This time, the veteran was awarded $200,000 and his disability rating was increased to 60%. He was finally getting the compensation he deserved. But it wasn't all good news. The veteran had become a celebrity of sorts, and he was being interviewed by media outlets all over the country. He didn't like the attention, and he just wanted to live his life. He tried to keep a low profile, but it was hard. People recognized him and wanted to talk to him about his case. He felt like he couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. The veteran eventually retired from public life, and he's now living a quiet life with his wife and kids. He's grateful for the support he's received from the public, and he's hopeful that his case will help other disabled veterans get the benefits they deserve. What do you think about this case? Do you agree with the judge's decision? Let me know in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss any news stories. Also, stick around for another touching story. Disabled man sitting on bench turns out to be millionaire. A young woman was walking through the park when she saw a disabled man sitting on a bench. He was wearing old, dirty clothes and begging for money. She felt bad for him, so she sat down next to him and started talking. She learned that he was disabled and had been living on the streets for years. He had no family or friends who could take care of him. Touched by his story, the woman started visiting him every day. She would bring him food and money so he could buy new clothes and shoes. She also helped him get a job at a local coffee shop where he worked part-time. One day, the woman noticed that the man was acting strange. He seemed nervous and kept looking around. When she asked him what was wrong, he told her he had to tell her something important. He explained that he wasn't a beggar and he wasn't homeless. In fact, he was a millionaire. He'd been living in disguise for years to protect himself from people who wanted to take his money. The woman was shocked. She couldn't believe that the man she'd been helping was actually a millionaire, but she didn't care. She had developed genuine feelings for the man and didn't want him to go back to his old life. She begged him to reconsider, but he was adamant. He needed to reveal his identity and reclaim his fortune. The man went back to his old life, and the woman never saw him again. However, she never forgot him. She often thought about what could have been if he had chosen to stay with her. Do you think the right choice was made? Should the disabled man have stayed with the woman or gone back to his old life? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss any news stories.